Thank you everyone for being here. Let's dive into the heart of this program that you are all here for, and that's to learn about Smartrock. So I will be playing the role of Q&A concierge today. So as questions occur to you, please type them into chat, and we will be getting to those during the Q&A session and discussion session at the end of the program. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to both ROCKWOOL North America and 475 High Performance Building Supply for their founding sponsorship support of Passive House Accelerator and making all of our work possible here at the Accelerator. Also a shout out to ROCKWOOL North America for being the conference sponsor for the Reimagine Buildings 25 conference on June 12th as well. So with that, I think I'm ready to make some quick introductions, and we'll keep this quick so we can get straight into the presentation. We're joined today by Ryan Martin, who is Senior Product Manager at ROCKWOOL North America, Rob Blunt, who is the Architectural Manager in the Northeast for ROCKWOOL North America, and Aaron McCormick, who is Director of Technical Development at 475 High Performance Building Supply. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it off to Ryan, I believe.
Thanks, Zach. And that's amazing. There's just a few things going on for your group. So lots of really cool events. And yeah, we just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all. So thanks for the invite and great showing here this afternoon. So as Zach mentioned, we're going to watch the chat as we go through, but the goal is to leave plenty of time for some Q&A at the end as well, because I'm sure that this will bring up some questions as we go through. So please don't hold back as we get towards the end of the session here today. So, so as Zach mentioned, we're really here today to focus on what is a brand new product launch jointly developed between ROCKWOOL North America and 475 High Performance Building Supply, and that is our Smartrock product. So where this kind of a little bit of background on this product is, you know, we've seen, and I think this collective group around Passive House Accelerator would certainly, I'm sure, join into this thought, is a really growing demand in particular for retrofitting a lot of these existing masonry and concrete buildings where, you know, maybe going exterior with a solution, overclad, eaves, etc., may not be feasible for every project. And so how do you handle that when perhaps you need to flip your insulation strategy to the inside of that structure? So that's really where this product was kind of inspired from. And you know, several years after kicking off development, we're proud to say that it's finally here. So a couple of, I think, of quick stats before we jump into the meat of things here this afternoon is, I don't have to tell you all, but we have definitely seen a growing trend towards the level of architectural billings that are geared towards retrofitting, renovating existing buildings, and to where, you know, latest AIA data is that it's close to 50-50 now between retrofit versus new construction projects, and just really shows that, you know, the opportunity not only for a product like this, but just this conversation around how do we make sure that we're making the most of our existing building stock is really only growing in terms of its importance, notwithstanding, you know, energy code compliance and changing regulations that are happening by the year right now as well. So something to flag as well, just in terms of quantifying some of this information around the existing building stock that we're looking at, is this data is provided by the US government. So based on the Energy Information Administration, it looks at floor space and quantity of buildings that are still standing today as well. And you can kind of see that outlaid over the course of several decades there. And ultimately, the key takeaway here is that about 21% of the US non-residential building stock was actually built prior to 1960. And those buildings are still standing here today. So and some of the studies that have been conducted, one specifically around New York City, also looked at, you know, that actually the most inefficient energy buildings are actually those built between 1941 and 1970. And that group is actually about 25% of the existing US building stock. So lots of opportunity out there for retrofitting existing buildings, and also the carbon impact of obviously taking down a structure and completely rebuilding is increasingly, I think, more top of mind for all of us as well. But one of the other changes to kind of highlight there, and I know we've got folks, I'm just looking at the chat there, from a variety of states and locations around North America, is that there was a change in the 2015 IECC, which actually removed an exemption. So previously, historic buildings had an exemption from compliance with modern energy codes. That in general was removed in 2015. Now, your particular states and jurisdictions may or may not have kept that. So that's something to maybe pay attention to offline, but just something to flag there is that where maybe there was some more gateways to avoid some of the investments in energy efficiencies, that those may not be there for you anymore. So when we talk about this kind of mass wall application, and when we say that, we're really talking about masonry, we're talking about concrete applications, so CMU, brick, all those that are encapsulated within that definition there, is we're really looking at traditionally either interior continuous insulation or split insulated walls, really commonly used, also exterior continuous only, and just, what are different strategies that you can utilize to attack that, both for new construction and for renovation and retrofit. So one of the real focuses again for this new product of Smartrock is that it's looking at both of these angles. It's looking at the existing masonry building stock, which we know is plentiful, especially in areas like New York, Boston, Chicago, up into further in the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic region. Lots of existing aged buildings there that would certainly be good targets for this kind of a solution. As well as new concrete and masonry. So that's really looking at type 1, type 2, type 3 construction, and just how do we provide a solution? Again, I think the industry and all of us are very familiar with the traditional overclad, whether that's rain screen in terms of clip and rail systems, girt systems, as well as EIFS overclad or stucco overclad solutions as well. But again, what happens when you need to flip that strategy and deal with something that can actually be installed on the inside of that substrate? So we introduced this product, Smartrock, on April 2nd. It's available in a variety of thicknesses, mostly to make sure that we have solutions for different energy code requirements in the regions where we've initially launched the product. But a couple of key things here is that the product is non-combustible, even with the incorporation of the Smart Vapor Control layer outboard of the insulation. It is Class A fire rated per E84. It's very durable as a solution and as a practice, which we'll talk a lot more about today, just in terms of what does this product do when it's installed in your wall assembly in terms of managing air, vapor control, avoiding moisture accumulation within that assembly. But one of the key things and why we integrated this in the first place too was around labor savings. We all know, I think, that there's a increasing stress around the contractor market and enough qualified labor to do the work that many of us are out there specifying and working on every day. And so this was something that was a pretty logical step between, us and working with Aaron and team fairly early on was, how do we look at potentially integrating products, cutting out steps, and just making that overall installation a little bit more seamless for the contractors that will be on the site. And so that's a big thing we'll focus on today. And also of course, the value of the stone wool is that we maintain our R value over time. So it's a stable thermal performance. We're not worried about off-gassing or changing performance in humidity and temperature changes over time as well. So it's a very reliable performance level. So when installed, the product looks a little bit like this picture on the right. So we're installing the product flush against that substrate. And then what we're doing is we're taping seams and fastener heads and penetrations and making sure that that secondary air control layer provides just that, another way to control air from getting in and out of the building, to ultimately, one, avoid air leakage, but also to make sure that we are realizing the investment in thermal that we're putting into this wall assembly. So we want to make sure if it's R10, R12, R16, whatever the R value is, we're realizing exactly what we're investing in. And so this product is really designed to be easily cut around penetrations, around corners, around edges, windows, which we'll talk a little bit about because that's obviously a complexity in a lot of these projects, but also is at least in 2.5-inch thick and above. It's also a dual density product. So when we're conforming the product to the existing substrate, again, a lot of these are older buildings, of course, and so we can't always count on that being perfectly flush on every floor and every room that we work in. And so that flexibility gives us a little bit more of a usability when we're talking about getting the product on the job site. And then also one of the key things in that this is a little bit jurisdiction specific. So, check with your specific area, but you may not have to necessarily displace folks the same way as you would with a spray foam type product, just based on the avoidance of off-gassing of the product. We don't need people installing this product in any kind of special attire. It's just standard kind of PPE that would be used to install the Smartrock product. And also because we're non-combustible, that allows us to be a little bit more flexible on installation as well. And so getting into kind of four of the core areas here, fire we've been talking a little bit about already, the non-combustibility factor per IBC 703.3.1 and the Class A fire rating. The durability piece, I think, is going to be a huge importance today, and we'll get into some of the technical evaluations and testing shortly here that's been done for the combined product. And the boards are really designed to be self-supporting and able to conform like we spoke about before. From a sustainability perspective, it's a very low GWP product with no off-gassing concerns. It's a reliable and stable R4.2 per inch over time. And another thing that we've heard a little bit from the market is that, what happens down the road if I needed to, quote unquote, re-retrofit the building? It can be easily removed. We'll talk about that. It's basically 3 fasteners per board. So it's a very simple and quick installation. But we don't need someone to come in with specialized training or anything to remove it. It's, take the tape off and remove a couple screws and you're good to go. So it's a very quick installation with only standard construction tools that are required for installation. And then again, we provide that integrated membrane for an airtight layer when it's adequately sealed. At a high level, this is how the product would compare against other average solutions that might be used for an interior retrofit of these masonry concrete buildings. So again, we're looking at, on the far left there, Smartrock as the stone wool product, and then kind of comparables there. So we have a lot of spray foam solutions looked at today. We have rigid foam products. So just highlighting a few of the factors to avoid the table being, 10 or 12 columns or rows high, is what really jumps out is the non-combustibility piece, and also the fact that we do not require a thermal barrier over the product because of its performance. Whereas you can see the others all fall in the other side of that equation. So needing to have a thermal barrier installed, especially before you have any kind of occupants in place. Typically, we know that's 1/2-inch gypsum over your framing. But what this means is that's actually not required when it comes to the Smartrock product. And rather than just declaring essentially what is minimum Class A from a fire reaction to fire perspective, as the others do, which is the less than 25, less than 450 on the flame spread spoke development, we actually declare that our specific values, which are the 15 and 20 there as well. So in terms of where we've launched this product in what I'm calling phase 1, it's about 21 or so states where it's available, essentially the Northeast, New England area, the Mid-Atlantic, and what we would typically call either the North Central or the Midwest region. So that's where the product is available as of effectively April 2nd of this year, so about 6.5 weeks ago or so when we launched the product. And our intention is to basically learn and just make sure that some of the processes are working really smoothly, that the product is well received, documentation's all there, and then the goal will be to further expand both to the rest of the US, but also into the Canadian market, likely as soon as middle of next year. But timing is a little bit TBD on that, but there is definitely a goal and a plan to further expand this product as we continue forward here. So what does a typical detail look like at a high level? We do have an architectural detail package that we can go through in the Q&A if anyone has questions there as well, but just from a more of a graphic perspective, so showing kind of an existing, in this case, brick masonry wall. So we're going to put on our typically recommending a liquid applied vapor permeable air barrier. Then we have the Smartrock. You can see the seams and the fastener heads taped with what is a blue tape there, which Aaron will talk a little bit more about later what that solution is. And then a framing with a finish would be typically how we're installing, whether it's wood framing, steel framing, doesn't really matter, whatever your specific project calls for. We've seen early on a couple jobs that are looking at thin steel framing because they're putting all the insulation into the Smartrock as the continuous, and really just using the framing as a means to run some basic wiring and then something to attach the gypsum finish to. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility there. From a new construction perspective, which could be, again, masonry or concrete, we'll typically see a very similar installation. The only thing here to call out would be that typically that new construction may not require the liquid applied air barrier. That's so it's tagged as optional here. Just oftentimes those in new construction, those will more than satisfy to qualify as air barriers themselves as substrates. And really what you can see here is typically in that climate zone 4 and up is where we're going to use this integrated product, because again, that's where that's where the value of the Smartrock really comes into play. Not to say you wouldn't also use it in 3B, but just that it may not be required in all instances as soon as you drop to kind of climate zone 1, 2, and 3, just based on the different conditions of those regions. So with that, I think I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Blount to continue.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be here. I'm Rob Blunt. As Zach mentioned, I'm architectural manager here in New England. So when we look at creating these assemblies, we really are, in a sense, flipping a rinse screen inside out, and except we're dealing with this existing masonry layer. And the first thing we want to look at is the condition of that masonry. So that might entail basic stabilization, right? So from the outside, managing mass water, pointing, replacing any brick that's damaged, potentially taking a look at the actual characteristics of the brick, how they deal with moisture, and their capacity to dry as we start adding insulation. We've robbed the brick of its the thing that's kept it alive for hundreds of years, probably, and that is energy driving out through it. And also on the interior, we probably need to look at cleaning up the surface of the brick and stabilizing anything or removing any material that's going to prevent the application of that liquid applied air barrier or primary air barrier, in this case in the form of Viscon. Then we want to look at also how are we going to attach that material. Again, condition of brick. The materials that we use to attach the inside of that brick may have some bearing on the overall success. We want to look at how much insulation is going inside of that wall, what climate zone are we in, probably bears some WUFI or basic hygrothermal analysis. That's something that we offer through ROCKWOOL Building Science, and 475 can also lend a hand in determining what's going to be the best practice for how much insulation material you're going to introduce. Having seen a bunch of these happen already in Boston, the concept of a variable vapor permeance material inside of insulation isn't new, but the integration of it to the board is certainly the new piece of it. And here in Boston, when we look at historic buildings that have this continuous slab interface with the outside brick, in some cases that insulation could be as thick as 8 inches. Again, that really depends on how much real estate the project is willing to give up with the addition of additional materials. As Ryan mentioned, sometimes that means a really thin LGMF framing just to carry service, to carry electric and other services. And then we look at really continuity in control layers. So, of course, if we're endeavoring to put this much work and time and insulation into the inside of an existing building, we're probably replacing the windows too. So what does that interface to the windows look like? Having windows that are in this case, probably passive house level, right? And then the whole impetus behind this, introducing this layer gives us the opportunity to crush the heating and cooling loads in that building and better balance heat and cooling, as well as ventilation. And of course, because we're probably talking about passive house, that means ERVs or HRVs. In terms of the difference between a smart vapor barrier and a class 1, 2, or 3 barrier, what we want to understand is that permeability is the key here, where we don't want to be wide open in terms of permeability, but we don't want to be vapor closed either. So looking at the purpose and the function of that vapor permeable layer, we want something that is going to allow for residual moisture to exit the wall into the space when RH allows for that. So That means that in the cooling season, we see a much greater temperature and RH on the outside, which ultimately may be pushing moisture to the inside of that wall. So the layer opens up and allows for moisture to drying in both directions from the wall. And in the heating season, where things we're reversed now, we want to make sure that we don't have diffusion pushing moisture into our fibrous insulation inside of that wall section. So we really are able to accommodate pretty much all climate layers. And the interest, sorry, I'm just advancing here on my side. If Ryan, you could, thank you. So the INTELLO Plus membrane, Aaron, jump in here if I miss anything, really functions as two vapor control layers, as a class 2, a low end or low permeability class 2 in the winter, so guarding against condensation and again resistance to diffusion, and then as a class 3 in the summertime, so allowing for that maximum drying potential. And really this acts as a secondary air layer as well. We know that as we're looking at historic structures, oftentimes if we're applying that liquid applied barrier to the brick, we might not get perfect application around where the penetrations are, around where the slab edge interfaces are. So having a secondary air layer is key. While we're all familiar with the INTELLO Plus product in terms of applying it in a roll, again, the same thing applies with when we're looking at a historic project. It's a lot easier to put up the board and tape the edges than it is to deal with a roll and minimize the amount of fixation that we need to use. Could you slide? Thank you. So in terms of the humidity dependent vapor retarder, they're really designed to have the lowest permeability during the winter and the highest permeability during the summer. And what that means from a numbers perspective is that the water vapor transmission at 73 degrees, we look at a 25% RH with a maximum of 0.1 perms at 71.5%. Then the maximum is 1.2 perms, and at 90% RH with a minimum of 6 perms. So in terms of what that means from a product perspective, with the combination of these two products, we want to look at, because we're looking to also improve interior environmental and air quality, we do carry all the certifications that come with both of these products, of course. So in terms of Declare, we are Green Guard, so we're Green Guard Gold, Declare Red List compliant, and have third-party HPD or EPDs on the GHGs, and also meet the VOC emissions for the Cal Department of Public Health standards. So really, that is kind of synonymous with Green Guard. As we look at what we see from the EPDs on the commonly used materials that are inside of historic masonry, so basically spray polyurethane foams, we're looking at the carbon equivalents for each of these products, and the acknowledgement that there's blowing agents that are part of this. Some of these products we can see in kind of a basic graphic representation what we're getting in terms of carbon in terms of for an R10 application, and then we can scale that up based on how thick your wall is getting with additional insulation. In terms of VOC testing, Smartrock happens after the facer is applied. So that means that the product's going from, or the application of the INTELLO layer happens after our product's made. So that means the product's going from our facility to a third party, and then it's faced before being shipped to UL for evaluation. So this is kind of a difference from our standard product off the line, which goes direct to UL. Smartrock has passed both classroom and office certifications through UL. We look at the also a manufacturer declaration in terms of emissions testing for VOCs and general product transparency. I mentioned ROCKWOOL Building Science as we were looking at the general steps for doing a historic reno in back of masonry, and ROCKWOOL Building Science is a suite of technical services that is offered to better support the design community. That includes thermal bridge analysis, hydrothermal modeling, R-value calculations, both 2D and 3D, if you're willing to go down the rabbit hole for 3D modeling. Full building modeling, again, a big endeavor, also acoustic modeling. And we can also help. So we don't pretend to take the place of your consultant, but as we want to start with the best possible assembly before we start the interface with the consultant, we can certainly provide you with a good tool bag for having established that the moisture performance in the wall that you're designing and the thermal performance and even in some cases sound performance are going to be what you're looking for with the product. And I think a lot of this is well illustrated by the case study that Aaron's going to talk about, and he will probably get into a lot more of the actual details of transitions from our material or the facer material to the window detailing and all the stuff that we like to get nerdy about here at PHA.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks everyone for having me. So yeah, the system as a whole, I mean, you're never just going to install the Smartrock board just alone. So you need a couple of other components to make your project a successful project. So the first thing that you would be applying onto your wall is the Viscon liquid applied air barrier. There's also gaskets that you might want to use for air tightness around wire penetrations or around piping, whatever the case might be. But additionally, what you're going to want to use is an airtight tape. So all the seams of the Smartrock are going to have to be air sealed. You don't want air getting in between the seams of the Smartrock and then maybe condensing on a surface somewhere in there. So there are a series of tapes that are produced by Clima, and they're complementary towards the INTELLO system and therefore complementary towards the Smartrock system. They're designed for the purpose that we're developing Smartrock essentially to prevent wetting of a wall and to allow any moisture that's in that wall to dry out. So the first product that I'm going to briefly talk about is this blue tape that you see down here on the right-hand corner. It's called Tescon Vana. It's probably one a lot of you are familiar with in the Passive House world. So it's a solid acrylic tape, which differs from a lot of other acrylic tapes on the market. So the solid element means that if it touches a wet surface or if it comes into contact with a damp substrate, that it's not going to affect the connection, essentially. It's 8 perms and it's totally airtight. It's also been tested in Germany for a long-term permanent adhesion. So basically, they put it into a testing chamber and they acceleration age test it. So they expose it to heat and cold conditions, they expose it to moisture, and then they test it afterwards. And it's surpassed 100 years worth of acceleration age tested at this point. The other product, the black tape with the green logo on it, that's called Contiga Solido IQ. And this tape is a little bit more unique in that it really complements and behaves similarly to the INTELLO Plus membrane. So its vapor permeance changes depending on the humidity conditions that it's exposed to. And that allows it to be that allows it to be installed on the interior of a wall assembly and on the exterior. So critically at your windows, you're going to want something that's vapor retarding at low to moderate relative humidity conditions. And then when there's high levels of relative humidity, maybe around your window frame, you're going to want it to open up and allow some of that moisture to diffuse towards the exterior. It's also very useful for corners. So if you have floor joists or again window details, it actually has multiple release strips on the tape, and that allows you to really get into different corners, and it's pretty versatile. You can find all this information. It's on our installation guide. You can find it on 4755's website and on ROCKWOOL's website. And go through all the different components that I've mentioned. Ryan, if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. So given that it's a pretty new product, I don't think there's anything like it on the market. If you're looking through the code and you're trying to see where it goes, it's not going to mention anything like this. So in combination with ICC and ROCKWOOL and ourselves, we basically developed a standard that the ICC was going to say that this allows this product to be used within the building code. And it's a combination of two other accepted criterias. There is one for humidity dependent smart vapor retarders, and there is an accepted criteria for rigid insulation boards. Ryan, correct me. I don't think it's mineral wool boards. I think it's just rigid insulation boards. But basically, there's a merger of the two standards that the ICC approve. You go to the next slide. And then once that standard has been developed and approved by the ICC, we submit all our testing data. And we say that this is the OR value, this is the air tightness, this is the vapor permeance, and they evaluate it, and then they issue us with this ESR, Evaluation Service Report. And this basically declares everything that you should be looking for within the product. If you want to go to the next slide, please, Ryan. So I'd encourage you to go through this. One thing that's critical that Rob was touching on is the vapor curve of the smart vapor retarder, or the humidity dependent vapor retarder. And that you can see that down here on the table in the bottom right hand corner. You can't really have a vapor retarder, a humidity dependent vapor retarder without having a third permeance rating. Once you have that curve, that information can then be brought into Woofy. So for anybody that uses Woofy, in the latest version of Woofy 7, the Smartrock product is in the database there. You can use it. And yeah, so now we have this ESR that should show any code inspector that the product complies to the building code. Next slide, please, Ryan. So about 3 years ago, I'm going to say, our CEO, Floris Keverling-Boesman, who I'm sure plenty of you have maybe met, he's presented here numerous times on the accelerator. He came into the office and he said, grab a city bike, we're going to go look at this site in Brooklyn. It was just down the street from our old office. And we pulled up and there was this 2-bedroom apartment and a 4-port garage. And there was a couple of celebrities with their car parked in there, but it didn't look great. It was a bit of a dump, for want of a better term. But we knew we needed a new office. We've been looking for some time to basically have a new home for 475. Next slide, please. So given that we specialize in passive house, that's kind of our bread and butter. We obviously wanted to build a passive house. So that was the initial goal. We did not want to use concrete or metal, or we wanted to minimize that as much as possible. So we were really exploring mass timber. New York City has very strict fire code, so we were if we didn't want to use some sort of foam, we had to basically use mineral wool, which is kind of perfect because we were developing this product around the same time as we were building the new office. And obviously we wanted to last. We didn't want any moisture issues. We didn't want any mold in the building for our occupants. We didn't want any freeze thaw or anything like that. Next slide. And so this is what we came up with for our assemblies. There was a mixture of brick walls and some CMU walls. Some of the CMU had to be repaired. But essentially, we ended up with masonry, and then inboard of that masonry was the Viscon liquid applied air barrier. Inboard of that was the Smartrock product that was anchored with some PMF anchors. Then it got totally taped with the Tescon Vana tape, and anywhere where we had corners or windows, we used the Solido IQ tape. And then inboard of that, we framed the wall. So just a normal 2x4 wall, and then we put ROCKWOOL comfort bat. Am I right, Ryan? And then we just it was just drywall after that. So that was the assembly as a whole, and that basically ticked a lot of boxes for us. It was the liquid applied air barrier was also preventing any moisture that might have been getting into in through the CMU or through the brick. It was preventing it from getting into the insulation. It was also acting as our primary air barrier, and then we had insulation for sound, and it was fireproof. And then obviously the humidity dependent vapor retarder was involved as well. So it stopped any vapor getting into the assembly, and if anything wanted to dry back out towards the inside, it allowed that to take place too. Next slide, please. And so this is the end result. So on what you're seeing here on the ceiling is the nail laminated timber that we had planned to put together ourselves, but in reality, we realized we were better at sitting at a desk and watching contractors actually do what they're supposed to do. But it's a pretty beautiful building. On the glass that you're seeing there is a Lamilux roof skylight. We have passive house windows here on the right-hand side. It's extremely comfortable, much more comfortable than our previous office. We did initial blower door tests to, I think it came in at 0.3 air changes per hour. We're pretty close to commissioning and doing our final blower door test, but we're quite well along with the certification process with Passive House Institute and with fees. And yeah, we've continued to not model, but analyze the moisture content of all the walls. We actually have moisture monitors in the walls. I'm sitting right here on the right-hand side, and right behind me there's an OmniSense monitor. Myself and Floris were just looking at it the other day, and we're already seeing drying potential towards the inside. And yeah, with regards to embodied energy and operational carbon, we're flying, to be honest. I don't think we turned on the heat, and I think we turned on the AC just last week for a couple of hours, but that's about it. And yeah, that's it from us. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, so we'll open it up, Zach and team now. That's kind of the end of our content. I know it's a lot of information. We probably could have done a 2-hour presentation on it. So trying to keep it to 40 or so minutes. So we've got lots of time for Q&A hopefully here, but yeah, happy to kind of field a way between the three of us here, whatever's in the chat, or if anyone wants to jump on. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Ryan, Rob, and Aaron. That was perfect. And you hit the timing right on the nose. And we do have a good chunk of time here for questions, which will be good because we've got lots of questions. So the way this will work, folks, is I'll be inviting you to come on to unmute yourself and come on screen if you're able to ask your question. You can also signal in the chat if that doesn't work for you. But we'll get started with Armand Magnelli. Armand, it's possible that your question was answered, but I wanted to give you the floor here if you'd like to ask it.
Unmuting myself.
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
We're putting you on the spot. You're the first.
Hi, Armand.
Hello. I'm very interested in this product for use in basements and crawl spaces.
Sure.
For its fire rating specifically, and perhaps slightly more so in crawl spaces. And my typical use would be to install a vapor barrier on the floor of the crawl space, up the masonry walls, typically concrete block, almost to the top of the wall, leaving a inspection strip for termites in my climate. And I'm just interested in whether or not that's an appropriate place to use this product, and if there are any particular installation details that would be helpful to know.
Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe I'll kick it off, and then Rob and Aaron, if I miss anything, you guys please jump in. So yeah, Armand, thank you for the question. I think we have always thought of I'll call it the below grade interior, if you will, as almost like a secondary application for this. It's very viable for that. Obviously, the intention originally for us was thinking above grade, retrofit, and new, but what's above grade often below grade would be more than satisfactory as well. So definitely well suited to be used on the inside of say it's a precast or cast in place, I guess, or I think you said that, or CMU. If you go on the inside of that, this product will be more than sufficient. I think the one area, and I think it was Rob touched on it, his section there, is just making sure that we have continuity of those control layers and detailing from one component or one area of the crawl space to another. But I don't see any issues with using the product. What just out of curiosity, Armand, what climate zone are you in?
Southern Pennsylvania, I think it's
Okay.
6.
Southern PA. Okay. And then to answer your last question, we do have a series of details. Right now, there is a version for existing multi-wide masonry retrofit. There will shortly be a version completed and uploaded that will be for concrete as well. So I will drop a link into the chat for everyone if that's the easiest way to see those as well. But Aaron, Rob, I don't know if you would add anything to answer Armand's question about below grade.
Yeah, and I'm specifically interested in whether the use of a poly vapor barrier against the foundation wall is the appropriate application.
Yeah, I don't think I mean the purpose of that vapor barrier, at that point you're protected against moisture ingress like water.
Yes.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a direct replacement. You still need to make sure that there's no water getting into the assembly essentially. Once you've addressed that, then you can address internal airtightness and
So
vapor control.
keep the poly is what you're saying.
I would say so,
Yeah.
but send us an email and we can double check with our team, and I can double check with ROCKWOOL Building Science as well.
Yeah.
I
but
would.
on the face of it, I would
echo that. Poly, heavy polyethylene as a water barrier on the floor and transitioning up to the wall makes perfect sense. But I think there's a case by case basis depending on what the details look like and what your condition looks like, how much water is coming through that wall. There's a couple things to look at there for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Armand.
Thanks, Armand. Boy, do we have a queue here. Let's move to Brian Hicks. Brian, you had a couple questions. You want to choose one?
Hey, thanks, Zach. Thanks for the presentation. Just curious, I don't know if you have any details you could throw up on the presentation right now, just about how the Smartrock might integrate around horizontal structural members, for beams that frame into an exterior masonry wall. So how do you,
Yeah, so this is the package, Brian. I just put a link into the chat for. So it's a full existing multi-wide masonry retrofit package of construction details. We also have, so this is kind of the architectural side on our site. We also have what I'll call the contractor side of it. So the installation instructions. Aaron kind of touched on it briefly with his narrative there in his presentation, but actually walks the contractor through how to detail and the way we approach those. I can open that if that's helpful as well, just to kind of show a glimpse of what's in there. Is we've approached those to be essentially for window penetrations, show one version, but obviously there's a million ways that you can do a window. So just kind of one version. And then if you have project specific conditions to continue to go through again, either 475's technical team or our building science group as well. So these are more the contractor side, kind of how to execute in terms of what happens when you hit a floor line, what happens detailing joists, how do you treat that wall, how do you manage the window detailing and penetration. So there's even jam details that are included for the contractor. And there's
Okay.
a video animation of this piece as well. It's about a 7.5-minute video that brings to life the actual install part. So if the contractor is new to it, kind of walks through step by step how to do that as well.
Great. And then second question, completely different. As you're marketing this material throughout the country, are you including technical colleges who train the workforce on this product? Because I would say, like in our older cities where retrofits are more complicated and maybe the labor construction workforce isn't as skilled with products like this, I think it would be really great to, in your marketing or training program, to hit technical colleges on this product so that you're not just educating us, the designers, but you're also really educating the next wave of people who have to do these retrofits. So
I think that's a great suggestion, Brian. I
and
don't
I
know that we
speak,
have, but yeah,
I would
that's
consider
great.
that because I'm speaking from the fact that I sit in St. Louis and we just had a tornado hit last Friday, and it hit North St. Louis, which is, most of the housing stock is built before World War One, and there will be a massive rebuild campaign for all those masonry buildings. And there's a technical college there that tries to train the local workforce, local youth on how to, in the construction industry. So anyway, that's sort of specific to St. Louis, but I think it's really great to, get in front with, like I just said, get in front of those technical colleges that are training the new wave of contractors, builders, so that they're familiar with your product. Because otherwise, they're just going to pick the cheapest stuff that's at Home Depot, right?
I think that's great. I think maybe what would be excellent is probably Rob's counterpart in your area. I think it'd be great to get your contact details, Brian, and maybe link you guys up. And if you have,
Sure.
even if we kind of start with the one that's in your area, I think that's a great suggestion. But Rob, I think you were going to jump in there as well.
Yeah, as of late, I have spent actually quite a bit of time either speaking to architectural programs that are more technically oriented. So I think like Wentworth Institute for Technology here in Boston, but there are other schools that kind of sit in that same boat, as well as technical high schools, which are actually pretty advanced here in Massachusetts. So it's certainly something that happens, I think, somewhat organically with all of our architectural reps, as well as our art class residential reps, right? We're doing a lot of hands-on training where we're able. I chair the local building closure council, so I just came back from the NIBS, National Institute of Building Science, Building Innovations Conference yesterday, and a lot of conversation there about this approach, and more importantly about the training side of things, right? So it's certainly something we're thinking about, and there's not enough hands at this point, but we will absolutely engage anybody who wants to get training, whether it's kind of a more student version of our retrofit CEU is basically what we end up doing with those types of requests on a pretty frequent basis.
Right. But I really like your local strategy there, Brian. So I'd love to touch base with you afterwards. Yeah,
absolutely. And I also know that ROCKWOOL is sometimes hard to get. Like it has to go through a certain supplier.
We're fixing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've tried to get ROCKWOOL for my own home.
Yeah.
Lowe's, Home Depot just, looks at me like I'm crazy. So anyway, there's a need. The point is there's a need for your product in these older homes. So train the new workforce and get your product out there.
And get it in the market, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the questions, Brian.
Yeah,
Brian, I dropped my contact info, both email and phone, in the chat. If you can scroll through the long list.
Sure.
If you reach out, I will absolutely put you in touch with some folks that can help you out.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And just to let folks know, Aaron, Ryan, and Rob are all available, or some subset at least are available to answer questions until 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Pacific. So we will try to get through as many of these questions as we can in the next 35 minutes. So Christina, you are up next.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I didn't realize I'd have to ask on air. I'm just curious if it's good practice to put a liquid air barrier on limestone mortar bricks.
Aaron, that might be you.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I would say the world of liquid applied air barriers is pretty unique to North America. You see it less kind of around the world. It's something that I would say you would want to do a test with, like an on-site field test, and make sure that nothing is actually happening. The specifics to limestone, I'm not aware of. What I have seen is people have used our liquid applied air barrier on limestone before. I've seen it on brick. I've seen it inside of CMU, and I've not seen any issues, at least for hygrothermally. Trying to remove it could be a problem. Once it's on, it's not really designed to come off. But if you want to send me an email about a specific project, we can look into it and see with Proclima in Germany if they have any more experience with limestone.
Okay, great. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Christina.
All right, thanks, Christina. Adrian, you are up.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm interested in we use a lot of retrofits. We are consultants. We do a lot of hydrothermal analysis. And so there's a curve that shows that once you get about 90% RH, it's about 6 perms. We don't want to go above 80 in the long run. And if you look at just like at the data on the INTELLO X, it goes to 13 perms. This one sort of like maxes at 6 perms, and I'm guessing I couldn't quite catch the curve, but at 80% RH is how many perms are there?
At 80%, at 80% specifically, I don't think we've tested, but I think it's 75. I think Ryan, do you have-
71.5, it's 1.2. If you follow the curve, Adrian, at 80, it would be just around 2 perm.
Yeah.
At 80.
So
yeah.
It is certainly a lot better than laminated foil faced, right? And
Yes.
that's
Oh, yes. Significantly. I'll put the curve in the chat as well for you, so you have that.
I couldn't. Anyway, I'll find it. Would I find it on your website? The curve?
Likely you would in some of the documentation. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I couldn't see it on my chat, but maybe I missed something. But INTELLO X goes to 13. So is this because of the adhesion process that goes from 13 to?
That's correct. Yeah.
Correct.
So because you were applying it, the benefit is we have a vapor permeable insulation on the other side, but it's the method of attachment. So we're very cognizant of where and how much adhesive is applied to bond those 2 layers, and actually work directly with the manufacturer of the membrane, Proclima, who Aaron and team talk to on the daily, to make sure that the way we designed the product was still more than suitable for the application. So.
Okay. Now, our projects tend to be very large projects, like you talk about.
Sure.
1 million square foot buildings is typical, sometimes bigger. So we're gonna need, the clients require that we do some analysis to justify, putting this extensively. So we're gonna need to know how to input that into Woofy, because we have the curves for INTELLO X, but we're gonna need we need to know how this is modified.
So the Smartrock product specifically, we've submitted data to the Fraunhofer Institute, and in the latest version of Woofy 7, that product is available.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's already.
If you don't have it in there, if you have version 7, but you just have to, I think, download the updates from the site there. But yeah, it's fully in there. It'll be in 2 layers, so you just make sure you grab the 2 layers. I think they call it a base and then an outer, or an inner rather. But the components are all in V7.
And it is identified as Smartrock. How do
Yes.
they? Okay, great.
It's called Smartrock.
Thank you. That's all. Very happy to know about this product. I've been waiting for it for a long time.
I actually have a visual, Adrian, that I'll put in the chat, which is a actual snippet of what you would see in Woofy V7. So that's
you have a
whatever.
tremendous market in New York City and potentially also in other locations like large ones. I'm sure we'll be in touch on that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for the question.
Thanks, Adrian. Jennifer Stearns, you are up next.
Hi, I just had a quick, it's not exactly a question, but I was curious about the any changes in the membranes over time, and how long have these membranes been used? Thinking about these old buildings, it seems like a great product, but was wondering kind of what the expectations might be for the stability of this vapor permeability.
Sure. So the product has been available for the last 25 years, or last summer it was the 25th anniversary of the product. Um, One thing that is kind of standard practice for smart vapor retarders in Europe and Germany is that you actually age the membrane and then you test it. So there is a German standard that INTELLO Plus complies with that shows that you actually age the membrane, much like we age the tapes, and then you test it for vapor permeance. I don't know a lot about it off the top of my head, but I know that INTELLO Plus complies and has shown similar performance. If you want more information, unfortunately, I have to keep saying that send me an email, but it's kind of the way I can supply you with more information.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Joe McGill, you're up.
Hey, yeah, thank you all for being here. I have two questions. I'm curious about application in like single family residence with conventional wood framing. Is this mostly for masonry, or would you put it on, 2x6 walls?
Yeah, so great question, Joe. So we would this product specifically is designed for the mass wall application and kind of abutting directly against that. If you're dealing with kind of traditional stick framing, we would probably recommend something a little bit different for that application. Maybe if you're doing bad insulation or bad and exterior continuous insulation, just probably depends on what your overall assembly looks like. But I'd say likely not this particular solution, but maybe project specific conditions could change that.
Sure. And then can you speak to embodied carbon and like environmental impact over the lifespan, manufacture to disposal of the product?
Sure. Let me pop that slide back on chat, and Rob, this is kind of in your wheelhouse, so maybe if you want to clarify any points here, but let me just so we have the model basically as an overall GWP, and then we have it for specific R value, that being the R10 as well, Joe. But Rob, I don't know if you want to hit on any highlights here again.
Yeah, sure. So I guess you asked a couple different questions there, so I'll try to capture all of it. We can see graphically here that there's a marked difference between the most common application I've seen, and the question that I get the most is, how do we use ROCKWOOL instead of 1 inch of closed cell spray foam on the backside of a historic masonry wall, or 2, which is pretty common, but you can see that there's a huge difference in the embodied carbon there, or the GWP in general. The other thing that I look at, bigger picture outside of just insulation or just ROCKWOOL, is what is the product that you're using? Is it doing all, are you comparing two products that are doing the same thing, right? So on top of the fact that we certainly have a better embodied carbon picture than some other alternatives, or at least are equal, we achieve a bunch of other, we check a lot of other boxes that some other products don't. The flammability thing is huge. The permeability is another piece of it. And I think, what was the last part of your question regarding, over time?
Yeah, like disposal too.
Well, there's a school of thought out there that says that if you're saying, that, comparing saved carbon through use of insulation is, it's kind of an odd exercise, right? Because that, it's the whole purpose. But the one thing I would say about over time is we're all designing for deconstruction these days, I hope, on new construction. And I think Brian mentioned this in the run-up. At the end of the day, this is product that will eventually be able to come out of a wall and go back into a circular cycle, minus the INTELLO, of course. But that's really the big piece is what happens at the end of the cycle. If we're going to measure how much heat transfer is reduced over a period of time, I mean, you're getting into orders of magnitude of 100 times or something like that.
Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Great question.
Thanks, Joe.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you. William Craig has left the meeting and let me know that we should skip over his question. So let's move on to Timothy Spittler. Timothy, you're up. I think Timothy's here. I'll give you another moment to unmute, and if not, I will.
I'm
Hey,
here. Sorry
great.
about that.
No worries.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It looks great. So we'd like to use this product on a job coming up, and I was just we're putting Viscon on the walls right now. So I'm just curious about, and we've had some talks with 475, so I'm probably being redundant, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, that's our initial air barrier. We're drilling into it, those anchors. Like, what is there a caulk that's going, like, how do you not damage your Viscon air barrier behind the Smartrock?
Aaron, you want to take that, or you want me to take it? You want to take a stab?
Maybe we can both take it. I mean, there's a certain amount of self-sealing with the Viscon. I mean, from experience, Tim, it kind of morphs kind of around it, but I wouldn't say it's the same as like a screw through like a tape that's a self-sealing tape. So there is an element of self-sealing, but I think it's a combination of using the Viscon and the INTELLO that then gets once the anchor gets sealed to the INTELLO, that's really what's going to give you the overall performance.
Yeah, and I think Tim, as Aaron was going through that section of the deck, and I think Aaron appropriately framed it as nobody's going to just put the Smartrock on the wall and walk away. A critical performance component there is that secondary air control layer, and that comes by sealing all the seams between the boards, and then also, fasteners and other penetrations. So if you have pipes and other things coming through the wall, those need to be adequately detailed, and we have some detailed notes on how to do that, both from an architect perspective, but also for the contractor. But I'd say that secondary piece is how you then control that air sealing at those penetrations. And so one of the things we did as a exercise with this product is traditionally, if for those that are familiar working with ROCKWOOL, is unless you kind of override it through an engineer on the project, we typically have always recommended 5 fasteners per board as kind of our default. We did specific testing for this application, knowing that we're on the inside of the wall, so we're not dealing with wind loads. We're mainly dealing with stack effect and gravity, and that's how we were able to dial it back to 3 per board for the Smartrock application, and we have kind of a 2/3, 1/3 recommendation as well, but a lot less penetrations than maybe you would typically have for kind of board stock on the inside as well.
Got it. Sorry, I'm the Smartrock, we'll be taping everything, we'll do all that. I'm more worried about 3 penetrations into the Viscon per sheet of ROCKWOOL that's going onto the wall. Like that's where I'm confident we'll do a good job of getting the air barrier on that Smartrock. I'm more worried about our Viscon. Basically, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts, like making only small penetrations. So
there's different anchors you can use, and one of the options is like stick pins. So you don't have to penetrate the Viscon at all. So the stick pin could go on, it'll adhere to the Viscon, and then the boards, I don't know what the right term is, but the pins go into the mineral wool itself, and it shouldn't penetrate the Viscon, and it shouldn't penetrate the INTELLO. So that's an alternative option.
Aaron,
okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Have you guys done any compatibility testing with the it's usually an epoxy adhesive that holds that perforated pin base in place?
We have not.
Okay. That's certainly something you might look at. And the other thing that we've seen in pre-Smartrock is folks basically holding the boards in place by whatever means they can, and then really the framed wall in front of it is what holds everything kind of there. So it's depending on the size of your job and the or the you know, what the setup is and the application. There are other ways to kind of keep the board where it belongs until you hit
Uh-huh.
where you're framing in front of it. If you're
Yep.
worried about that multiple, you know, blindside penetrations.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That was a
Awesome.
great question.
Yeah, thank you. Maureen Shea, you're up.
Yes, I just was, maybe this is kind of a dumb question, but so you put your Viscon on and, you know, I imagine that the Viscon is more important than having the second membrane on the outboard of your interior insulation. So what is the, you know, benefit of having the second membrane, and how critical is it? And does it allow you to use more insulation?
You want to take that one, Aaron?
Sure. So when you say second membrane, what?
Because your first membrane is the Viscon. You
It's
put
like an air control layer, I think you
Yeah,
mean.
air
Yeah,
control.
Maureen. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
so you
then-
now you have the insulation and the second one right there, you know, on the other side of the insulation. So I've just, you know, typically we haven't put that second one on in jobs where we've made a huge investment in putting on the interior air barrier, because it is a lot of expense for the customer. client.
Sure. Well, I'd say if you're using fibrous insulation, then you should probably have a vapor control layer in board of that. So while the INTELLO is airtight and should be installed in an airtight fashion, you would still want to stop diffusion from taking place through your insulation.
But if you have a limited budget, I mean, how critical is it after you've already put the Viscon on the existing masonry to then put another membrane in between, you know, outside of the insulation? How critical is that in terms of just performance
Highly
on a tight
highly
budget?
critical.
Go
Yeah.
on, Rob. Go for it.
Highly critical.
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
without some type of vapor barrier, what you may end up with is accumulating moisture in that fibrous insulation, and you know, it's going to end up there because of the basic conditions inside of everybody's homes. So the idea is that we keep most of the moisture from pushing out from the existing space and stopping effectively because of temperature somewhere in the middle there. And the smart barrier, its chief function is that, but it also is a secondary air barrier as well. So because as I mentioned before, regardless of how judicious somebody is about putting an air barrier on the backside of some masonry, there's inevitably going to be some misses. So we really try to belt and suspenders that application. But you know, that can the question you're asking is probably better answered by a basic woofy model, which would, you know, show that without blocking any moisture, you're really putting yourself in a risky position.
And does it have anything to do with the thickness of the insulation?
There is an appropriate amount per climate zone, you know, a minimum amount that you want to go with, to be sure. But the thickness of the insulation doesn't affect permeability. So we're perm rating at 30, which is far more vapor open than the rest of the wall, if you will. Really, what it comes down to is making sure that that we have enough insulation to keep the inside of the or to keep the dew point in behind that vapor barrier.
Because, you know, in Passive House, they always had this thing about the maximum insulation you could put inside on the interior wall. And I just wondered if that was related to that point.
It is related. It's a little bit different. We want to and it's also why we're looking at the use of that permeable, that vapor permeable or variable vapor permeance layer, in that what we're doing is kind of flipping a perfect wall inside out, and we want all that moisture to stay on the outside and only kind of dissipate when conditions are safely allowed for it to happen.
But you are correct, Maureen, that Yeah, you are correct, Maureen, though. There's going to be a limit, if you will, on terms of the amount of insulation that's appropriate for your project. And that's where we would typically recommend, if you work with, whether you go through Aaron's team at 475 or you come through our group and we loop in our building science team. I think either one of those avenues would help just make sure that, because that's also going to look at, you know, what is the condition of the existing substrate as well. So there's a few factors that would have to be looked at to say, you know, could you go 2, 3, 4, 5 inch in terms of the thickness of the insulation? So typically what we would say is it can be a little bit project specific. So that's always something, just a way to get you a project specific report as well with guidance on what level of insulation is appropriate.
Do you know what I'm saying though? It was R16 for interior insulation and the outside standard is R38. So I was just wondering if by using this vapor barrier secondary membrane on the inside, you would be changing those numbers in the general way.
It's a different animal. I think what you're talking about is the balance of insulation inside and outside the WRB. And
no, I mean, what I mean is that there was a danger of having insulation on the interior versus the exterior, and it was related to moisture. I'm sorry, you guys are probably all more experts than me.
This is Todd Kimmel, also from ROCKWOOL, just chiming in, and I think Ryan was trying to reference it. So that ratio, one of the big factors there is making sure that the brick itself can dry out, and that if you put too much insulation on the inside, the brick or the masonry can get cold and frozen for too long because you're not allowing the heat transfer through it. So that minimum quantity is highly a function of that, not specifically with regards to the permeance of the insulation on the inside. So those are two separate things. And so I think the emphasis here is that with the fibrous insulation, you want to make sure that if you're getting high RH inside the building, that moisture doesn't go through the fibers and condense on the inside of the masonry wall. And so that's the critical function of the INTELLO membrane within this assembly. And airtightness, as we know, if you have air leakage, a lot of moisture travels with that too. So it needs to be installed airtight and vapor tight for all intents and purposes. And then when the dynamics shift, you can actually allow that moisture to dry to the inside, particularly during the cooling degree months, which is important. Whereas if you're using a closed cell product, like a closed cell spray foam, that brick's going to get wet and cold and frozen and not be able to dry, you know, during that period of year. So it's a pretty esoteric assessment, but that's kind of a big part of what we're talking about here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Maureen. That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And hi, Todd.
Hey there. Sorry, I'm out walking the dog, so I'm not on camera.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Next up is Larry Lemanchik.
Hello.
Hey, Larry.
How you doing? I had two questions. One about the utilizing the ROCKWOOL building science, and then another question about projects in the Pacific Northwest. I'd like to use it. So I have a particular project, you know, like just doing a single floor of an existing hospital and, you know, masonry building and just doing this interior insulation strategy on the, you know, just a single floor, you know, and then, so yeah, what do I do? Take advantage of the ROCKWOOL building science. I'd like to do that. And then I'd also like to use your product, but it's not available in the West.
Yeah, great question. So I think building science, easiest way there, and we can maybe throw it in the chat. There's a contact us sheet. Larry puts you directly in contact with that team. They'll then reach out to you and either have a call or an email exchange just to capture your project specific information, kind of what you're looking to do. Rob touched on any one of 6 services that team provides. So if it's hydrothermal only, or if you're looking for multiple services, that'd be an opportunity for you to kind of flag those. In terms of availability, you're correct. Right now, that quote unquote phase 1. I'm assuming when you say Northwest, like Oregon, Washington kind of area, is that where you're at, Larry? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this project's in Washington.
Okay, so I would say, you can definitely count on that being part of the expansion. If you have the project before that happens, just let us know, because the other option we have is distributors that have locations that are in the service area and also out of it. that's a way for them to do transfers as well. So there's an opportunity to still get you the product. But if you're looking at, say, 2026 timing, I don't know what your job looks like from that respect, that should not be an issue.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the questions, Larry.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Next up is Marek Terzinski. And Mark, it looks like you're here. I don't know if you're able to unmute. If not, I can ask the question for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I had a
great.
question.
Yeah.
Do you think this system can be applied for a precast concrete building, clad? Instead of doing closed cell foam insulation on interior, can you use that system? Can you use mineral wall and tape?
Yes, you could. Mm-hmm.
So that's the second batch of drawings you're referring to for concrete. Those are the details you would be, could apply.
Yes, exactly, Mark. And those are still in development. But if you have a project in the meantime, we can still support you. We have existing concrete design packages on the site. They just don't speak about the Smartrock product. So it's something our technical team will still be able to assist you with if you have something that's in the interim.
Yep.
But
I know
definitely
Todd.
Suitable.
I know Todd Kimmel well, so I
There you
guess
go.
he's our contact person. I know he was mentioning the product last year, so now it's real.
Yeah. He was whispering it around last year a little bit, kind of teasing it out. So that's why everyone was ready for April this year. So yeah, absolutely, he's your go-to still for that, Mark, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Great question.
Awesome, thanks. And next up is none other than Sean St. Amour. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, guys. Sorry to miss the question about product availability, but again, now that I'm involved in retrofits up here in Canada, I want to know, when are you crossing the border? And I was joking about tariffs, but just when's product looking available to cross the 49th parallel?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. I'm also in Toronto, so it's I'm at the Milton head office here. So happy to get that question. Right now, I would say Canada would probably be a target of, I would say, mid 2026. There's a few additional areas we have to look into there. Some of the ESRs and different compliances don't always necessarily perfectly cross over between US and Canada. So there's an element of scaling in the US that's probably a lower hanging fruit, I would say, but it's 100% on the cards to expand up here. We've done assemblies like this in two-step installs in Canada for some time, but obviously there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained by doing it all in one. So it coming soon to a market near you, Sean.
Okay, well, when you need West Coast test projects, call me.
You're the guy. Okay, gotcha.
Happy to use it.
Thanks, Sean.
I'll get our design teams planning for 2026. I'll give you the summer, okay? Summer 2026.
Beautiful. Keep me honest, will you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Great stuff. Great presentation, and can't wait to start using this product. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Great to see you. Next up is Philip Dvorak. Do you pronounce it like the composer?
Yes, hi. That's correct. Yeah, I think you answered it before, but can I use it inside a basement on a concrete blocks?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Great. And then second question was 4x8 sheets coming in future, maybe?
That one might be a longer term development. I would say right now it's going to largely stick to 24x48 just based on compatibility with the line for doing the lamination process. That could change down the road, but I'd say for the interim, plan on it staying 24x48 only, at least for a little bit. Should that change, we'll communicate that out through the field teams as well.
And how is it attached to the ROCKWOOL? Is it like a spray adhesive?
No, it's more of a sheet applied adhesive. So similar to what you would see used with, say, if you're in perimeter fire at all, with a curtain wall installation with the foil. Although we don't do a full coverage, it's a partial coverage intentionally, just so that we don't disrupt too much the behavior that we need out of that smart vapor control layer.
Okay. Right now I have on my house Adhero, and if I would use that over that, it would be too much of a double membrane air barrier,
What's
can I still use it?
full assembly? Can you give it from inside to
Oh,
out?
it's a old house. It's a 2x4, and it's like a remodel. And I'm inside the wall. It's a ROCKWOOL, and on the exterior, it's a plywood 3/4, and then INTELLO. And then I was planning to use ROCKWOOL sheets, the 1.5 thick. So
Yeah, I don't think this would necessarily be the right application for it, where we
okay,
can,
cool.
It's if you were going to use it in this case, you'd put it on the inside. However, it might just be easier to install INTELLO and put a service cavity and then use like mineral wool inboard of that.
And
I was thinking of on the exterior.
Yeah, residentially on the exterior, you would use probably Comfort Board 80 or 1.5 inches.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, this product is definitely not tested for prolonged UV exposure, I would say, Philip. So it's more to be protected on the inside of those kind of mass wall substrates. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for the
That's
questions. Excellent.
Thanks, Philip. Next, we have Debbie Chambers. Debbie, I'm not sure if your question was answered already, but if not, please ask away.
Hey, since I'm in the queue, why not?
Yeah, go for it.
Definitely, rallying for getting this out to the West Coast, especially California. Thank you very much. I actually think it's a great application. I just want to make sure. So this is more of an interior application where we can kind of combine technologies. I have a lot of retrofit projects in, like he was speaking about, precast. So yeah, would love to see this come to California sooner than later. Thank you.
Absolutely, Debbie. I'd say scaling, going west is definitely part of phase 2 expansion. So we will absolutely keep you posted on that.
Just so you all know, you can still get the product through 475 and we can ship across the country.
Yeah, there's a loophole there. There you go. Yeah. So
yeah,
there's an
mine's
option.
all DoD bases. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. So
perfect.
We can wait for 2026 if that's it, but 2028, no.
Awesome.
Thanks for the question, Debbie.
So both Azad and Alexander had to leave early, or not leave early, but weren't able to make it all the way to the end here. So Marcy, you are up.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'm up here in Minnesota, so working in climate zone 6 and 7. So I submitted my question right around Marine's perfectly timed question about moisture and thickness of the insulation. But just to piggyback off of that, are there any rules of thumb as you're doing these WUFI analysis? Any kind of I guess guidelines for us in these colder climate areas of maybe not, is there a level of insulation we should not go over, any kind of maximum threshold?
Yeah, that's a harder one to answer with regard to freeze thaw, because ASHRAE 160 as an example, it doesn't actually go into that amount of detail about the threshold for failure on freeze thaw. FIAS also have a standard, and it doesn't go into that level of detail either. However, I think if you speak to ROCKWOOL's technical team, if you speak to Ali or Antoine, they're extremely knowledgeable, and I think they kind of give you, they lead you in the right direction, and they should be able to kind of give you some sort of indication as to what would be a riskier assembly. I'd say how much insulation would start to induce too high levels of relative humidity assembly. That's generally what you can take away from WUFI.
Yeah, and it probably feels like a bit of a cop-out answer, Marcy, but if you do that, what Aaron just said, getting a project-specific report just, I think, helps everyone sleep better at night, knowing that it's been evaluated for handling the conditions that you're looking to put the wall assembly in. Because again, like Aaron alluded to, and I think Rob mentioned it too, a lot of these buildings are potentially going from, and maybe not yours, but in general, there's going to be a good portion that go from, say, no insulation at all to then now putting 1, 2, 3, 4 inches directly against that substrate. And that's just really asking that substrate and that wall to really change its behavior quite a bit. So It's hard. I know I asked the same thing early on when we were developing this product. Hey, can we come up with some kind of blanket range? And was basically, this is why we need to take this approach, is just to be cautious, yes, but also just to be as much in terms of guiding you in the right direction as possible. So,
and the other piece of it is, what does that wall look like? Is it concrete slab all the way around the building, touching the wall, huge linear thermal bridge, or is it an even older building where there are timbers pocketed into the wall, which is a better condition in that you have less thermal bridging, but now you have to worry about what's happening with the moisture in the beam in that pocket.
Right.
Got it.
So hopefully that
Thank
helps,
you.
Marcy.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcy. And we are almost landing this ship on time here. We're just a minute over. Joe, I think that your question was probably answered, but I'll give you a moment to ask it or it looks like you're you're here. Okay, you're unmuted. Great.
Here. Yeah. My question was just about exterior use. So it sounds like it's just not tested for UV resistance, right? Yeah, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So not intended at all for anything outside of that substrate. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Well, this has been amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to make a couple of thank yous and then hand it back off to you guys for any last words you want to share with folks. I'd like to thank Kim Davis and Kara Eng for producing today's Component Spotlight and making everything run smoothly for us. A big thank you to ROCKWOOL North America and 475 High Performance Building Supply, again, for your founding sponsorship support of Passive House Accelerator. It's just been so vital to us and helps us thrive and be able to do the work we do. And thank you to ROCKWOOL for sponsoring the Reimagine Buildings 25 conference on June 12th. And I want to encourage everyone to register for that conference at passivehouseaccelerator.com. There were a lot of questions about continuing education credits today. Unfortunately, today's presentation isn't, we don't have credits for that, but we will have lots of credits for the conference on June 12th. So please join us for that. And Ryan, Rob, and Aaron, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Awesome product. If you want to say any last final words here, please do.
Yeah, just again, thank you for having us, Zach and team. This has been fantastic. For those that are attending AIA, I think all three of us, Rob, Aaron, and myself, will all be there. ROCKWOOL will have a booth. We actually have this year's featured display is actually on Smartrock, so feel free to stop by. You can touch and feel the product and kind of see a real life install. And of course, we'll be there for any more questions for you. But yeah, just from my side, thank you.
I'll echo what Ryan said. Thanks for having us. I'm also just going to put my email in the chat if there's any other questions. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you guys for having us. I'm always thrilled to be here, whether I'm talking or just lurking. I'll piggyback on Ryan's statement about AIA. We have 6 Learning Lounge events at AIA, so one of them will definitely touch upon this at least. We are also hosting a Rock Connect, which is specific to retrofits, and we'll talk about Smartrock a lot, where there is AIA credit. And if you're here in Boston for AIA, I have to plug the Boston Society for Architecture and the Building Enclosure Council, which I chair, which has a bunch of events happening in and around that time. So find us on the web and have a good time while you're here in Boston for AIA.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday. This has been really amazing.